Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. As you know, there is a conflict between authorities of Kiev, between Zelensky and Poland, not just between Ukraine and Poland. Currently we also see some conflict between Ukraine and United States of America. And, for example, the Polish authorities have already reported that they're going to stop providing the Ukrainians ammo, that they're not going to send more weapons, and furthermore, the official Polish authorities have already published the updates, and that 78% of Poles do not support assistance to Ukraine. And this is evident by a poll by the Vedomosti radio station. A lot of things, a lot of events, a lot of media information that recently have been published in the open source, and people see that Western countries increase the pressure against Ukraine, increase the pressure. For example, local Polish authorities have calculated the number of assistance and help that they managed to provide Ukraine since the beginning of the special military operation, and according to some calculations, Poland have already sent the Ukrainians the help for around $21 billion. Significant numbers, of course, we understand. Furthermore, the Polish authorities reported that they've stopped supporting and sending Ukrainians the weapon because currently Poland is trying to create and to renew their own munition warehouses. Furthermore, we start receiving more updates from United States of America. For example, today we got another update from Congress. Today, for example, Rand Paul reported that he will oppose any attempts to hold the federal government hostage to funding Ukraine. I will not agree to fast-track any budget measures that would provide additional American aid to Ukraine. A lot of updates from different sides of the world, from United States of America, the main vendor, the main supporter, and Poland. And we see this information. From one side, we can say that Western countries are trying to drop Ukrainians and stop supporting them, as United States of America and the Poland. But you need to understand one important thing. There is a very important difference between Western countries and, let's say, Russia and Moscow. For example, Russia is more autocratic government, and it is much more easier to hide some mistakes, to hide some problems, sometimes even not to give people any information, any piece of news regarding this or that problem. So that's why there is no such problems like not understanding from people about this or that situation. The Western countries have completely different situation. Furthermore, don't forget that Western countries is getting inside of the new election cycle, new election period, and we know that Western countries haven't managed to defeat the Ukrainians, the Russians, on the ground. They haven't managed to destroy Russian army. They haven't managed to help the Ukrainians to provide necessary help to penetrate the Russians' defense belt, to return control over Crimea, and so on. And basically now they need to find a solution how to get inside of the new election cycle and to win new elections. It consists not just Biden but also Polish authorities. And they found a small solution. Currently they try to use the strategy by saying that Ukrainians authorities are not grateful the Western countries and the United States of America about the help that the Western countries provided them. This is the track that these countries are going to use. This is another one important thing when discussing and talking about Western countries, Poland and so on. Another thing that you need to understand, that Ukrainians have spent everything they were given for the offensive operation in Zaporozhye and Orechov, where they were completely defeated in Vremivka tactical bridgehead and Donetsk. And now the Western countries understand that it's turn to start the movement of the Russians. And for example, yesterday we have already discussed that Russians are planning to attack Ukraine within three directions. For example, Mi-6 reported that the Russians will try to return control over Bradley Square, to defeat the Ukrainians not just on the ground but also in the media sphere, and probably the Russians will attack the Ukrainians somewhere in Sumy and Chernihiv area. And currently the Western countries, by giving all these messages that Ukrainians are not grateful, that we stop sending them weapons, just try to be secure, because they understand that there are very high chances that Ukrainians will be defeated during the next offensive operation, and basically the Western countries just want to save their reputation. Because now they understood that they realized that it would be much more better if they sent all these weapons to Ukraine, like Bradleys and Strikers, but it would be much more better if they created less noise, like, because the events that Strikers, Bradleys and Challengers and Leopards will appear on the Ukrainian field was something like a miracle, like, that everybody was so excited, saying that as soon as the Russians see these Challengers or Leopards, they will run away and somewhere very far to Siberia. But later the Western countries faced completely different results. Their army was completely defeated, the Western countries, and now they need to find a solution. They need to find how to continue providing Ukrainians the weapons, but to do this less visible, we can say, even maybe invisible. And all these words about stopping supporting, it's just another like election like strategy not to lose that's what left from the Western countries' reputation regarding weapon and so on. Because they understand, one more time, that the Ukrainians are going to be defeated during the next Russian counteroffensive, and they understand that they don't want to see Western weapon destroyed, Western tanks destroyed, Abrams destroyed, Challengers destroyed, HIMARS systems on the ground while the Russian counterattack. They know this exactly, so that's what they just want to be and to feel themselves and to stay on the safe side. That's it. I don't think that the Western countries are going to stop Ukrainian support. The only thing they want is to secure their reputation. Now let's move to the ground, and today we got a lot of updates from Vremevka tactical bridgehead and from Bradley Square, from Orekhov direction. During those days, like yesterday, the day before yesterday, we haven't received almost nothing from this area, and probably mainly because of General Assembly of United Nations. And probably there was some kind of agreement. There were agreements not to publish updates because that was the main event, and nobody should like change focus to like some Verbovo unknown settlement among the fields of Zaporozhye area. And as soon as this event gets to the end, the Russian sources started publishing a significant number of video updates and geolocations how the Russians were repelling a few waves of attacks of Ukrainian forces in direction of Verbovo. The Ukrainians, as you can see, according to these geolocations, managed to return control one more time their positions in front of Verbovo itself. Currently, there are one more time no barriers between the Ukrainians and the settlement. They are ready to attack, and probably the Ukrainians were trying to concentrate their forces, were trying to collect critical mass, but the Russians' drone bombers were attacking the Ukrainians 24 hours, 7 days a week, and of course that reduced the Ukrainians' possibilities. But no matter that, no matter the Russian attempts to bomb and attack the Ukrainians, as you can see, all those bombings that we just on the videos took place on these trenches from one tree line to another on the west of Verbovo. And later the Ukrainians managed probably to collect some forces, managed to accumulate a significant like armored fist, and they started their movement. The Ukrainians were moving along the tree lines, along the trenches, with strikers, with Bradleys, with tanks, with Western weapon, significant number of forces. They were trying to get as close as possible, but the Russians controlled the entire situation, and as soon as the Russians spotted them and tracked them, they started bombing and attacking the Ukrainians with all types of weapons they have, with FPV drones, with artillery strikes, with mortar strikes, and during those attacks a lot of armored vehicles were damaged. The author of this video calculated that something around 7 or even more armored vehicles were destroyed during the Ukrainian another attempt to storm and to establish the foothold in the western part of Verbovo. That attack was repelled. The Ukrainians had significant losses, but no matter the losses, the Ukrainians did manage to land the troopers, to unpack their armored vehicles, and to capture some tree lines and forest lines among the fields of between Rabotina and Verbovo. And for example, according to information we have, the Ukrainians managed to get at least in this direction, so they managed to bypass tree lines, significant distance, as you can see, to capture these trenches. Let's like update the map for better understanding. So as a result of that attack that we just watched, the Ukrainians managed to develop something like this. to get the trenches, and after that the Russians started bombing and attacking the Ukrainians in those trenches. So, and of course that attack maybe brought some results for the Ukrainians, but when talking the global scope, the Ukrainians were also now one more time completely defeated, having significant losses. They managed to achieve just a very small result. Before those attacks, the Ukrainians were trying to suppress the Russian positions and the Russian forces using FPV drones, and the 82nd, the rest, that what left from the 82nd Brigade published the videos how they were bombing and attacking the Russian forces. So basically the Ukrainians tried to attack using broad frontline attack in many directions, to the south, to the southeast, to the west, using armored fist, a significant number of infantry and the support of armored vehicles, but they were stopped by artillery strikes, and later they were defeated and destroyed using the FPV drones. Another wave of attack, the Ukrainians took place on the northern part of Verbovo, but we had the same story. The Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainians with drones, with FPV drones. The Ukrainians were trying to move along the trenches, but they haven't managed to get the western edge of the settlement, and basically also were defeated. The Ukrainians tried to collect forces and to create the same feast in the vicinity of Robotyne. But when talking about this direction, the Russians saw everything from the beginning, and they didn't give the Ukrainians even a chances to concentrate, and that attempt, that direction of attack was stopped at the beginning without even small chances to start something big, or at least if compared with the Verbovo direction, something similar to Verbovo. The Ukrainian forces were defeated in this direction heavily. During the previous night, before the Ukrainians made preparations, before all these concentrations, the Russians tracked everything. Of course, they saw everything, and the Russians were attacking and bombing the main supply roads. So this is like those offensives from the Ukrainian side failed from the beginning, from night, and that this is like normal and logical results of those attacks. Also, we have more details from western Orekhov direction. If we increase the number of updates from the 1st of September, we see some activity in this area also from those sides, from the Russians and from the Ukrainians. I'm talking about this direction. Maybe the Ukrainians will try to start movement in this direction, because basically it is too dangerous to continue offensive operation in that Bradley artillery pocket. Currently, it is probably more logical to develop their positions to the west, or just to maintain the combat line and to maintain the combat line and the front line as well. When talking about other events, very interesting things. Events are coming from Crimea. During the previous night, the Ukrainians made significant, very powerful attack against the Russian positions in Crimea. They used a lot of drones for those purposes. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, for example, reported that during the night they managed to shut down up to 21 drone, and for example, Ribber, the Russian military expert reported that just somewhere at 1:30 a.m. of the local time, they managed to shut down 7 drones in the vicinity of Evpatory, Mikhailovka, Ivanovka with air defense system. But this is not the end. Obviously, the main purpose of Ukrainians was to suppress and to reload the Russian air defense, to force them to spend the rockets, missiles, and we expect today and now more strikes. Probably we're using the Storm Shadow missiles, and then the Ukrainians will try to destroy the Russian air defense. So today, that was just the beginning. During the day, we expect more attempts and more heavy strikes from the Ukrainian side. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.